All right. Today we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting. I think it's an archive GitHub repository.
Oh.
Yeah, for a project called Mentat.
Okay.
Um, and think of it as like a kind of a time capsule, giving us a peek into AI development from a few years back.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so like, how much has the AI landscape changed, in just a few years? I mean,
It's
even
incredible.
it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think looking back at these kinds of projects can give us some really valuable perspective on how far we've come.
Exactly. And for busy professionals like yourself, trying to keep up with all this stuff, understanding this evolution can really help you make better decisions about, AI today.
For sure, for sure.
So,
Yeah, so this Mentat project,
yeah, go ahead.
the first thing you notice when you go to this repository is that it's got this big archived project warning.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a reminder that, like, the world of tech, it's constantly changing, right? What was cutting edge a few years ago might just be a historical curiosity now.
Yeah. And to add to the intrigue, the name Mentat is actually now being used by a completely different AI project.
Really?
Yeah, it's a code writing bot on GitHub.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's
Huh?
just a good reminder that the tech world loves to recycle names.
That's funny.
But we're here to talk about the archive project, the one that's frozen in time.
Right, like the OG Mentat.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
That's it.
And this is where it gets kind of interesting because this archive project, it doesn't really have a super detailed description, you know?
Yeah, right.
We're kind of left to like piece together clues from what's left. It's almost like a little digital detective game.
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's put on our detective hats
Okay.
and let's start with the repository structure.
Right.
We've got the basics, like,
Yeah.
the about section, which is pretty minimal.
Yeah, and that kind of lack of a really in-depth about section, that's actually pretty common in older projects.
Yeah, that's true.
Like back then, the focus was often so much on just like building the thing and getting it to work.
Yeah, just get it out there.
That documentation, sometimes that took a back seat.
We do have a releases section, though,
That's true.
which means that they actually got a working tool out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the fact that there are releases, it does suggest that this wasn't just some like theoretical project, they were actually
Yeah.
building something tangible.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if we dig a little bit deeper, we can see the language breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
And Python, like, totally dominates.
Yeah.
It's like almost 88%.
Yeah.
And then you've got a little bit of TypeScript, Jinja, JavaScript, and a few others sprinkled in.
Interesting.
So what can we infer from that?
Well, I mean, the fact that Python is so dominant, that suggests to me that there was a strong emphasis on the back end. Things like data analysis, algorithm development,
Yeah.
machine learning, model training.
Mm.
Python was kind of like the go-to language for that stuff back then, and it still is today.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
I mean, I know Python is super versatile.
It is.
But do you think there were, like, specific libraries that were commonly used for AI back then that might give us, like, more clues?
Yeah, that's a good point. A few years ago, libraries like TensorFlow and scikit-learn, those were starting to become really popular.
Okay.
And so if this Mentat thing was a real AI project, chances are it probably used some of those libraries, for its core functionality.
Okay, so we're starting to see a picture of a project that was likely, built for some pretty heavy-duty, data processing and analysis.
Right.
But we still don't know, like, what it did.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what it did yet.
That's the mystery.
That's the mystery.
But before we go there,
Yeah.
I want to point out something that I noticed we were looking through the repository.
Yeah.
We see benchmarks, docs, and tests folders.
Oh, interesting.
That's a pretty well-structured project, I think.
Absolutely. And the fact that those folders are there, even in like an older project, it really says something about the development team,
Yeah.
It shows they were committed to quality, they cared about maintainability. Yeah. It's just a good reminder that good development practices, they never really go out of style.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening who might not be totally familiar with benchmarking,
Yeah.
what does that actually mean in the context of AI?
Yeah, good question. So in AI development, benchmarking basically means measuring how well your algorithms or your models perform on certain tasks.
Okay.
So it helps you understand things like, how efficient is your AI, how accurate are its predictions, and how does it stack up against other approaches?
So the fact that Mentat had this whole benchmarks folder,
Yeah.
it suggests that they were pretty serious about evaluating, how well it performed.
Yeah, totally. They weren't just building something, they were measuring how well it worked,
Yeah.
which is a crucial part of any AI project, really.
That's right.
Yeah,
This is getting exciting.
it is.
We've got this potential AI project, focused on data analysis,
Right,
built with this focus on quality and performance.
right.
But the big question still remains, like, what was this Mentat thing actually doing?
Yeah. What was its purpose?
All right, so we are about to roll up our sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay, let's do it.
This is where things get really interesting.
I'm ready. So where were we? Oh, yeah, we were about to try to figure out what this Mentat AI was actually doing.
Yeah, we've got all these like little clues, right?
Uh-huh.
Python benchmarking, no real description. Like, what does it all add up to? What kind of problems was this thing designed to solve?
Right. Well, let's think about the name Mentat for a second.
Okay.
It's often associated with like strategic thinking analysis, decision making, especially in science fiction.
Right, okay.
So that could be a hint maybe about its purpose.
So maybe it wasn't just crunching numbers, it was actually trying to help people make smarter decisions.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like, in what context, what kind of organizations could have actually used this thing?
That's a really good question. I think given what we've seen so far, Mentat could have been useful for a pretty wide range of organizations, especially ones that were, dealing with lots of complex data and strategic challenges.
Okay, give me some use cases.
All right, so imagine like a financial institution, right?
Right.
They're trying to, assess risk in loan applications.
Yeah.
Mentat could analyze like historical data market trends, individual applicant profiles
Mm-hmm.
to identify like potential red flags and maybe even recommend loan terms that, minimize the risk.
Okay, so it's kind of like having this like incredibly smart analyst
Yeah.
working 24/7, processing information, looking for problems.
Exactly. Yeah, like an AI-powered analyst.
That's cool.
Or think about like a marketing team
Okay.
trying to optimize their campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Could, analyze customer data, identify patterns in behavior, recommend personalized marketing strategies.
So instead of just relying on like gut feeling or, broad demographics,
Right.
they would have this like AI-powered insights
Data-driven
to
decision.
guide their decisions. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And it doesn't have to be just finance or marketing. Think about healthcare providers analyzing patient data to identify health risks, or manufacturers, optimizing their supply chains.
Yeah.
The possibilities are pretty vast.
This is getting me really excited. Like, we're piecing together this puzzle of this potentially groundbreaking AI system.
It is pretty cool.
But how would organizations actually use it?
Mhm.
Was this like a standalone software? Was it a cloud-based service?
Sure.
What was it?
Yeah, unfortunately, the repository doesn't really tell us the specifics of how it was deployed.
Okay.
But based on the technology of the time, there are a few possibilities that come to mind.
Right, let's hear them.
So it's possible that Mentat was developed as like a standalone software package,
Okay.
something that organizations could install on their own servers.
Right.
That was a common approach back then, especially for applications that were dealing with sensitive data.
Yeah, data security was a big deal then, and it still is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Another possibility is that it was offered as a cloud-based service,
Okay.
which would have made it more accessible to smaller organizations, that maybe couldn't manage their own servers.
So basically like an early version of the AI-powered analytics platforms that we see today.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool.
And, if we look at the languages used, or the fact that there's some TypeScript and JavaScript in there,
Yeah.
that kind of suggests that Mentat might have had some kind of user interface,
Okay.
maybe even web-based.
So it wasn't just a black box spitting out data.
Right.
There was a way for people to actually understand and make decisions.
Yeah. A user-friendly way to interact with the AI.
Okay, so we're seeing this picture of this AI system that's not only powerful,
Yeah.
but also potentially very sophisticated in terms of the user experience.
Right.
This is incredible. We've gone from this like mysterious archived
I
project
know, right?
to this potentially groundbreaking AI that all these different organizations could have used.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, like, if Mentat was so promising, why was it abandoned? What happened?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the repository doesn't really give us a clear answer. But based on, what we know about the AI landscape back then, I think we can speculate on a few possibilities.
All right, let's speculate.
Okay, so one possibility is that Mentat just ran into some technical limitations. AI was still relatively early back then.
Yeah.
the algorithms, the computing power available just might not have been good enough to really achieve what the team wanted to do.
It's like trying to build a skyscraper with the tools of a, previous era.
Exactly. You have the vision, but the technology's not quite there yet.
Right.
Or maybe Mentat faced challenges in terms of market adoption,
Okay.
like convincing organizations to trust AI with their data and their strategic decisions.
Yeah, AI was a lot less mainstream back then.
Right. People might have been hesitant.
Makes sense.
Another possibility is that they just ran out of funding or resources,
Yeah.
developing and maintaining a complex AI system. It takes a lot of money.
Yeah, it
And
does.
not all promising projects, make it to the finish line.
That's sad, but true.
It is, yeah, the tech world is full of brilliant ideas that never quite reach their full potential.
Yeah, but even though Mentat might be a relic of the past,
Yeah.
I still think it's incredibly relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, by studying projects like this,
Yeah.
we can gain all these valuable insights into the evolution of AI. The challenges the early pioneers faced, the lessons they learned.
Totally. And for busy professionals like yourself,
Yeah.
understanding this historical context,
Yeah.
it can really help you make smarter decisions about AI in your own organizations.
Exactly.
Now I think it's time to kind of shift gears a little bit
I
and think about, what does the future hold for AI systems like Mentat?
Okay.
How does their legacy continue to shape the AI tools that we're building today?
That's a great question.
We'll dive into that in the last part of our deep dive.
Okay, folks, get ready. We're about to wrap up our exploration of the Mentat project, but not before we take a look at the bigger picture and see what lessons we can take with us into the future of AI. So stay tuned. All right, so we're back. And we've had this whole episode, digging into this Mentat project from the past, trying to figure out what it was all about.
Yeah, it's been fun, kind of like a little digital archaeology.
Yeah, exactly, like uncovering these clues and trying to piece together the story. We've thought about its functionality, what it could have been used for, why it might have been abandoned.
Right.
But Mentat itself, it might be gone. But what can it teach us about where AI is going? How can we prepare for this AI-powered future?
That's the big question, right? And I think one of the key takeaways from all this is the importance of focusing on real-world applications. The people who built Mentat, they weren't just doing it for fun. They were trying to solve real problems for businesses, for organizations, for people.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that AI isn't just this cool technology. It's a tool that can actually make a difference.
Exactly. And as AI gets more and more advanced, we're going to see even more amazing applications in healthcare, education, transportation, all sorts of fields.
That's exciting, but it also makes me wonder, how do we make sure that AI is developed responsibly? Like, we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Right, and that's why it's so important to think about the ethics, from the very beginning when you're developing AI.
Yeah.
Like, who's going to benefit from this? Who might be harmed? Are there any biases we need to watch out for?
So it's not just about building AI that works, but building AI that works for good.
Exactly, yeah.
And that brings up another good point, collaboration, Mentat, with all its contributors. And that well-structured repository, it really shows how important teamwork is in AI development.
Oh, absolutely. Know that one person has all the answers when it comes to AI. We need to share what we know, pool our resources, work together.
And that collaboration, it can't just be within the tech world. We need people from all different fields, different communities, different backgrounds to make sure that AI is developed in a way that, aligns with human values.
I completely agree. Diversity of thought is so important when we're talking about the future of AI.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Mentalid, I think there are a few things we can all take away from this.
Yeah, for sure.
First, AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's really up to us to guide it and make sure it's used to benefit humanity.
Absolutely.
Second, collaboration is key. We need to work together to build AI that is ethical, inclusive, and benefits everyone.
Couldn't agree more.
And lastly, never stop being curious. The world of AI is constantly changing. There's always something new to learn. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with this incredible technology.
Well said. I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AI history. We'll see you next time for another adventure.